How are you this morning?
Very well, thank you. Thanks for having me. Sorry I can't be there in person.
Thank you for joining, Chris. Much appreciated. I know it's a busy time for you. You are attending a couple of meetings. But yeah, thanks for joining. And let me briefly introduce what we are doing here before we start your presentation. Would that be okay? Or what's the plan?
That sounds great. Thank you.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Hope you just finished the plenary and understand what we are going to do. Am I right, Anna? Okay. And Kristin, let me briefly tell about her. Kristin Geith is Assistant Provost and Executive Director of Michigan State University Global Program. And she's the university's entrepreneurial business, the university entrepreneurial business that works with partners across the campus and worldwide to develop and market online institutes, programs, and services. She has a PhD in curriculum instruction and administration, higher education leadership from the University of Nebraska. She has also an MBA from Rochester Institute of Technology. So she has an experience many years of experience in open distance learning and as well as on reusable learning objects, projects, as well as closely working with the bank to see how we can contribute by using these innovative learning approaches. She is with us. She kindly agreed, though she is on travel, to share her experiences and massive and as well as she has some presentation here to share with us what she's doing. Okay. Chris, if I missed out anything, please feel free to add to that one. Thank you again for joining. And let me briefly tell about who are the participants here. We have participants in a wide variety of disciplines. Here there are practitioners, there are subject matter experts, but many of them, they are heavily in see how they can transform these research results at this particular stage. We are organizing this capacity building program and understanding innovative technology approaches and methodology for agricultural knowledge. Hope that helps you to start with your presentation. Once you finish your presentation, the participants questions. Would that be okay?
Yes, that sounds fine. Can you hear me okay, Dilip? Because you were cutting out just a little bit while you were talking, so I just want to make sure my audio is nice and clear. Does it sound okay? Or am I breaking up?
It's very clear from your side.
Okay, hopefully sounds good. Thank you.
Very, very clear. I talk a little faster.
You sound good.
You may found those great.
Okay. If my audio goes low or there's a gap, just text me in the chat window. Well, thank you for the nice introduction, Dilip, and I appreciate being invited to join you today and share some of my experience. I love what you're doing and what you're trying to do and do more of, and anything that I can do to encourage you based on some of the things I've been doing. I'm very happy to share it, so thank you for having me today. There are going to be some links in this video, in this presentation, so I'll ask Dilip to open those up and play those. There's a couple links to some YouTube video, so hopefully that will work fine for you as well. So I've been involved in online and distance education since 1990. That was before there were even, the internet was not yet public yet. That didn't happen until about 94, 95. So I've been doing online things for teaching and learning and running education technology departments in universities since that time. In the last 7 years or so, I've gotten pretty deeply involved in open educational resources and open teaching and learning, open studying movement, and I've done my best to incorporate many of those ideas into the work that I've supported MSU. At MSU, my My scope is working across all 17 colleges. We have 49,000 students at MSU, and we have 17 colleges, including a College of Agriculture and Veterinary Medicine, Communication Arts and Sciences, and teaching and so on. I work a lot with the theme of food and agriculture across 2 or 3 of those colleges. But my purview is across the whole university and across all 5,000 faculty that we have. MSU's faculty do a lot of international work and development, usually around food, water, energy, and other related topics. And it's been my privilege to support them in building knowledge systems and in using tools for teaching and learning and capacity building. So what I'm going to share with you today are 4 trends in open very broadly defined. I'm going to share with you 4 things through projects that I've done and am currently doing at Michigan State University. So let me go on with the first slide here. So first of all, greetings from Singapore. It's my first trip here. What a place. I love it. And I'm here with the World Bank's Global Food Safety Partnership, which is in its first year. This is like the end of the first year meeting. There are about 100 people here from WHO, FAO, big companies that are in the food industry, universities, different capacity building organizations. This is a public-private partnership that I will tell you a little bit more about as we go on. It's one of my examples. So that's why I'm here and not able to join you in person. So first I'd like to just share that we have some things in common. About 1,800 of our 5,000 faculty are somewhere else in the world than Michigan in the United States, and our students are doing lots of service learning and study abroad and research abroad. So Michigan State University is really all over the world. And what I'd like Dilip to play for you now in sort of demonstration that we share a mission, and some of the techniques I'm going to share I think will apply to your work as well. So Dilip, if you could play this little 2-minute video. I'll click on it here, let's see if it starts up. This is a video of the story of what we call the Spartan's Will. And I'm not able to start it here, maybe you are. Yes, you can record the session. Let's see, so somebody there is going to have to click on that and see if it will start up for you.
Can you try?
Very good. Thank you for playing that video. It actually does a pretty good job of capturing the spirit of Michigan State. I don't know how many of you may have been to MSU. If you want to raise your hands, they're panning the camera so I can see. Can you raise your arm up high so I can see? How many of you have been to East Lansing, Michigan, visited Michigan State University, or have worked with somebody in India from Michigan State? From the view I have, I don't see any hands up. Okay. Well, I hope you do have an opportunity. I hope we have an opportunity to work with you. So those are the kinds of things that we do across all of our 50,000 students and our 5,000 faculty. And the way that we look at what we're trying to do with information, my slide's not quite working there. Hold on just a minute. Okay, what you should see up now is the Creative Commons symbol. And Creative Commons, just to give you a brief overview of it, it's a copyright license, standardized. It's a set of standardized copyright licenses that are maintained by a nonprofit in California. It started with Larry Lessig, who's a lawyer at Stanford Law School, and he wanted to create something that would make it easy for people to signal that they wanted others on purpose to use their intellectual property. So anything that you create is automatically copyrighted you, wherever you are in the world. It's copyrighted by you, whether you register it with copyright or not. It's your copyright. So if you want people to use it without having to track you down and ask permission, you need to specifically say that and use a Creative Commons license. And ICRISAT was one of the first research centers to actually adopt an open license. And I was just noticed that you have a wonderful resource up now. I think it's called Explore It, that I think is just a fabulous resources and a great example of the types of things you can do by, on purpose, designing and sharing your resources for open access. So it's a key principle that we've adopted as well at Michigan State University. And I'm having trouble seeing the slides. Can you guys see the slides? I just see a blank screen. Maybe you could turn the camera on the screen. That would be easier for me. That way I can just see, delete what you guys are seeing. Because on my end, it's just a white screen. Okay. So open knowledge. Open knowledge is sharing resources. You're doing it by sharing your research. We do it by sharing our teaching and learning materials. And this is an example. If you wanted to go to one of these two web addresses, you don't have to do it if I see most of you are at computers, so feel free to look at these sites. They're all live. The Food Safety Knowledge Network is an example of a knowledge repository. So this is teaching and learning materials for food safety, basic HACCP training. This is pre-certification, pre-food safety certification. We started this with funding from the Hewlett Foundation and also from USAID over the past 5 or 6 years since we started it. We've used it in many different countries. And when we do capacity building training on site, which is a combination of classroom and also hands-on learning journey kinds of things, we record everything that we do. And we organize it according to a competency framework, and we have pre and post assessments of our training that go with it. The idea here is to make the training materials themselves available as an openly licensed asset, a knowledge asset, and to enable people to translate them into different languages and to customize them with local examples, local pictures, local diagrams. So you could take a look at how we've organized this particular repository. It's under revision right now. It's grown so much, it's kind of outgrown its original structure. We hope for it to work very similar to your new system that you have, your Explore It system for your research, except we'll have an additional level of organization, which will be tagging these resources not just for theme area regarding to food safety, but also according to learning competencies, which will enable them to be more easily aligned with competencies, frameworks, and assessments. This is how, these are the users, the intended recipients of the Food Safety Knowledge Network. It's people across the value chain. Most of these materials are not used by these end users, but are used by trainers. So this is a train the trainer resource, although it has been used in direct e-learning and hybrid learning for individual end users. So for example, in India with the Tata group, in one of the pilot tests, they actually use this system for standalone e-learning for their suppliers, and that worked very well. But most of the use now is as teaching materials that trainers use for more traditional classroom-based instruction. And before I go on to this next one, does anyone want to ask any questions about the Food Safety Knowledge Network? And if not, I'll continue on and we can pause for questions later. Yes, are you raising your hand? Thank you. Hi. Oh, darn, I can't hear you very well. Yeah, I heard you say hello. Let's try that again. Go ahead. Here, I will mute my microphone just to make sure.
Hi, can you hear me now? Hi, Christine, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you nice and clearly. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. So you said that these are basically your users, and one section is also the small scale farmers. So like my question is like how are you like guys leveraging this FSK and training.org basically to like train small scale farmers?
Great question. Thank you for asking that. We are not currently leveraging that. We're not. It doesn't mean other people aren't that we don't know about. We would love to work with others, maybe you, to leverage these resources since they are openly licensed, to put them in, use them in a context that's useful for smallholder farmers. That's one reason we made it available, is to enable people that have better ideas than we do, make better use of this, repurpose them. You can do anything you want with these materials. They have one of the most open Creative Commons licenses. So we invite you to use them to create new solutions that we haven't even imagined. We use them mostly for more traditional supplier-driven, corporate or NGO-funded training. But I can imagine many uses for smallholder farmers. Do you have any one in particular that you'd like to share?
Maybe actually like building their capacities in adopting latest practices.
Mm-hmm.
That can be one.
Yeah, I would be.
That can be one of the use cases like which we can leverage this.
Yes.
This platform.
Absolutely, please do. That's why those links are live. The FSKN training, there's two different sites. They will be combined into one. The longer web address, Food Safety Knowledge Network, houses the competency framework and all of the resources. That's the unstructured repository that has the tags in it so you can search. The FSKN training is a site that we use as a follow-up to more traditional training. So when somebody says, I want to see the resources from my class, we send them to FSKN training. So it's more organized by class event. But it's the same information, it's just two different sites. We're combining those into one. But yeah, as you do go through your workshop, if you find these materials useful, or you want to do something special with them, or you have some advice of how we can make them more useful for your purposes, please let me know. Thank you for your question.
Yep. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so maybe we could continue on here with the next slide. And I'm still just seeing a blank screen, unfortunately. Let me just get to where you are. Okay, so this next screen, hopefully you're looking at the same one I am. It shows you the countries that we've used the Food Safety Knowledge Network in, and it shows you the groups that we've, yeah, there you go, the groups that we're currently working with, and those we've worked with in the past, over the past, I think it's about 6 years that we've been doing this. And what's interesting is that this particular repository, the Food Safety Knowledge Network, it's been most useful in showing to these organizations, private companies, you can see the organizations on there, and the funders, that this is useful. All right, the idea of having an open repository of content actually works and is useful. Is it as big as we want right now? No. Is it as big as it might be in the future? No. But it's an existence proof. It's a proof that this type of thing can have an impact, it can function, people will use it. And it's actually led to the meeting that I'm at today, which is the next slide. This is the Global Food Safety Partnership, and if you go to this web address, you'll see the website with the brochure about it. This is the World Bank event that I'm at here today. Because we've shown that online learning works, that hybrid learning works, that we're not the only ones doing this, but we've done a few projects to demonstrate it, and that people will actually use information that you make available on the web in this sort of a format. I'm now co-chairing the Knowledge and Learning Working Group for this initiative, because this public-private partnership intends to create a shared resource that build on what we've started in a different way, and create a shared collection that will promote the basic, the pre-certification training. So this is like the general wash your hands kind of stuff, the general HACCP things. We want to make that as freely available as possible so that we can help train with partners millions of people, not just tens of thousands, in particular target regions of the world. So it really has a global scope. So, I just did a presentation right before I joined you to the people that were at this meeting this morning. inviting them to adopt open licenses and to, by design, create and share digital materials that they already create, they already use for capacity building and training, and make it available in a way that we can all share it more readily. So that's really been the value of the Food Safety Knowledge Network, is creating a demonstration project, if you will. It's a little bigger than that, but that it really does work. And to the opportunity to help get these open knowledge ideas embedded in a public-private partnership for this purpose is really exciting opportunity. So I'm glad to be able to be participating in that. So keep your eye on this. Also, ICRISAT may want to participate. You might want to join the public-private partnership formally. And become part of a working group. There's one for knowledge and learning systems. That's one that I'm co-chairing. I asked Dilip's actually part of that, but maybe as an organization you actually want to have a higher profile, or maybe on behalf of the other research centers you want to do that. There's a communications working group. There's a more technical food safety training working group, which are the people who really know the ins and outs of the standards and so on. And then there's the Secretariat. They're launching a governance group after this meeting, and they've got already 4 years worth of projects as they build the public-private funding to do more. So it's very interesting. I don't know, I'm happy to be part of this, so keep your eye on that. And now let me share with you the second trend. Trend number 2, open curriculum. Open knowledge and open curriculum, what's the difference? Open knowledge could be curriculum resources for teaching and learning, like PowerPoints and videos and so on. It could be knowledge in terms of papers, white papers and research. It could be open data. But open curriculum is a little bit more structured. It's structured to meet a particular learning goal, right? So it's like a subset of open knowledge is how I think about it. And most open educational resources start to bridge into this open curriculum idea. This is a picture of a visual facilitation result from a convening that we had at the Gates Foundation back in, I think, 2010 it was. Maybe it was earlier than that. I think there's a date on there somewhere if you can see it. I put this up there because this was part of a needs analysis that we did with partners in Africa as convened by the Gates Foundation. The problem at hand was, how can the Gates Foundation support universities in creating more PhDs and master's graduates in things like plant science and soil science? There just aren't enough in-country experts. So what were some solutions? So we gathered people from all over the world, in particular university people and scientists from Africa, and we said, what's the nature of your problem? What's the nature of the challenge? What are the barriers? What are the things that can help you, overcome the barriers? And we identified an important gap that we could actually target with open curriculum and open educational resources. And that gap was defined by them, by the faculty in these universities, as the gap between the theory, which they mostly lecture about, and actual practice. They needed examples, science-based examples of real-life cases and illustrated case studies of things happening in their own backyard. Most of their students are not from rural areas, they're from urban areas, and they don't have firsthand experience with farming or with livestock. So they needed real-life local examples. A cow from Michigan, it doesn't help them solve problems with cows in Kenya or cows in Uganda. Totally different systems, different animals, so they wanted local examples. And this is where we focused our attention in a grant that's called the AgShare Project. And that's this link. Actually, the link's on the last slide. We work with OER Africa, who's part of the South African Institute of Distance Education. They're our in-country implementation partner. And AgShare is now in its second round. We had 2 years of funding for planning and pilots with 5 different universities using different methodologies for creating these local cases. And the result that came out of that is called the AgShare method, and we are now implementing that with RUForum, the Regional Universities Forum of 30 agriculture universities in Africa, mostly Central and Eastern Africa, Central and Eastern Africa. And let me go to the next slide here. These are some of the students. These are students at MOI. Some of these students helped create open educational resources, and some of them used the lessons that included the cases that were created. The AgShare method is a way for students, mostly master students, could be doctoral, or could be undergraduate. Mostly these were master students who are out in the field doing work for their thesis. And while they're gathering that data, doing their thesis work and working on their thesis, they are also working with their faculty members to record the story of what they're seeing in a way that can be used back in the classroom. So some of these students took videos, like for example at McCreary University, there was a student in agriculture and a student in the vet school. They used video and still photos to create a story of the farmer practices. So that, and from their two different angles, one from the vet angle and one from the business, the agribusiness angle. And they took, they made photo stories, and they wrote some stories, and they used videos on DVDs to tell and demonstrate the practices of the farmers and sort of before what they were doing and then after the intervention what happened. Really simple. Those resources became very, very useful for teachers back in the classroom to show examples of what was really going on. And they used those videos and those pictures and those stories in the agribusiness curriculum and also in the vet school curriculum. The idea behind AgShare is to embed that method into the research activities of students so that they're also storytelling, not as their full-time job, they're researchers, but as an add-on, that they're assessed by their faculty members of the quality of what they do, and they're trained in the methods of open educational resources so that they can use file formats that are shareable and that they put these things in a place that can be found. Right now the OER repository is on the OER Africa website, and this next slide I believe has, these are some examples. Those are two of the graduates of an agribusiness program. The last slide has the link to the repository, so you can look at what was created across the 5 pilot sites. These are the schools in which we've piloted this and the programs that are being targeted right now through RuForum. And RuForum is actually creating a database, a repository to house these materials that will be created by their master's students as part of their master's thesis research. This is a really sustainable model. It requires some capacity building of students and of faculty, and it requires some policy change a little bit on the faculty side so that they look and grade and assess students on the output of these we call them cases. They're not Harvard cases, but a little more informal than that, but they're illustrated case studies essentially. And it's totally sustainable, and the students got a lot out of it, and so did the faculty as well. It really bridged the field and the academic side of the house through students as agents of change. Very, very powerful, and I'll talk more about how we're using that model in just a minute. There are the links for you. We also had a special publication, a peer-reviewed publication called the Journal of Asynchronous Learning. We co-edited a special issue that the link is to on the bottom here that has about 5 of the partners wrote up exactly what they did. So you could see really in detail what was the method that they used, what worked, what didn't work, all in the Journal for Asynchronous Learning, which is online, and thanks to this initiative is also now openly licensed as an open access journal. If they hadn't agreed with us to do this special issue, I don't know that they would have opened up their publication. Prior to this, it was a totally closed, member-only publication. So I was happy about that. They agreed to work with us on that. Okay, so the first 2 trends, one was knowledge, the second was open curriculum. And before I go on, let me see what kinds of questions you have. I see the lights are up, the camera's panning. Any questions about open curriculum or the AgShare project? Okay, seeing no hands, I will continue. So there's actually 4 trends that I'm sharing. The second 2 have to do more with not just the assets, not the knowledge assets in terms of knowledge or open educational resources or curriculum, but actual people's roles, actually putting these things into action, because knowledge just sits there by itself. It's in some sort of a social context. People are problem solving, or they're at an event, they're in a class, they're doing something social with this information, or they're trying to do something with it. So I like this quote from Etienne Wenger, who writes a lot about the social side of learning. He writes a lot with John Seeley Brown, And I love this quote: "Knowing is an act of participation." And I pulled from some of the work that ICRISAT's doing. Conclusions from this study from I think this was your Water Institute, had recommendations of how is science taken up, right? I was really happy to see this on your website. What is it that allows scientific innovations from your research to actually be adopted in the field? What worked? And they analyzed, I think it was 10 case studies, and these were their conclusions, their 8 conclusions. They all have to do with people, right? That Etienne Wenger quote. Knowing is an act of participation, so co-creating things with people in the context, adapting to the local environment, really partnering for impact. These all have to do with relationships and people. So trend number 3 is students as what we call translational scholars. So this comes out of the AgShare project that I just talked about and the AgShare method. And what we've been doing inside of Michigan State University is taking that role of students and taking that storytelling ability and using open educational resource methodologies to empower students to take on a role on a research team that we call translational scholars. And this particular project is where we are building this model. So we have, we're beginning the second year of a 5-year USAID grant. It's called the Higher Education Solutions Network. We're one of 7 labs around the country. Berkeley's one, Texas A&M, and so on. And ours is a consortium. We have other universities as part of it, not just in the U.S. And one of our special contributions of this work of the Global Center for Food Systems Innovation is the role of students. So we have 50 students that are teamed up on different thematic research areas, like climate change is one, changes in education is another one, ICT for development's another one, gender is another one. So they have these themes. They're working with faculty to do white papers at this stage. We're still in the early stage. And students are not only doing that traditional work, but they're also doing things like the AgShare method. We're just starting this. My group is building the core knowledge platform for this work. So we are putting in place things like the AgShare method. We're putting in place the repository technology. We're putting in place the community building, social networking across these translational scholars and their faculty partners. And these are really expected to be change agents, these students from all different majors across the university. Some of them are traveling overseas and doing this work. Some of them are right on our campus. We have a couple of undergraduates now are part of this. So they're doing traditional research, writing papers, and they're also gathering data, but they're also in a storytelling mode. So this is just getting started. In January, our platform will be ready in its first iteration. We're using open source tools for the platform. They've already started a great Facebook page, and in fact, last month we were with the other 7 labs at a conference for the end of the first year of these grants, and our students invited all the students from the other 7 labs to join them and be part of what they're calling the Translational Scholar Core. Now, the term translational scholar may be changed in the future. It comes from the health field. So those of you that are in public health may be familiar with this term. A translational scholar, in fact, is a role that's written into grants. If you get one from the National Institute of Health or even from NSF, you'll see this in there as a real already defined role. In the health field, it means the researcher on the team that's translating the information into the voice and into information materials for other stakeholders. So if you're doing HIV research, the translational scholar is helping put that research into practice, into things that actually are happening on the ground in real life, and creating information and knowledge products by which to do that. So we're not aware of anybody else doing this in any agricultural fields, but we sure think that this is a valuable role that all areas of agriculture can learn from. And we're looking to partner with other universities, those in the other labs, but also maybe even with ICRISAT and other organizations to define this role. We're defining a set of competencies for this role. It may evolve into a certification or certificate that students can get on their resume that would be recognized outside of MSU. Maybe it can grow over time. So anyway, this is a very, very promising development, and these students are being trained in Creative Commons licenses, open educational resource methodologies and practices for creating and sharing knowledge. And before I go on to this one, any questions about the role of students or any opportunities that you see for translational scholar ideas in your own work? Scanning the room. Anyone want to raise their hand? Any questions about the role of students? Thank you. Okay, I can't hear you. I'm sorry, someone's going to have to restate your question because your audio is not coming through, unfortunately. Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay, well, my question is, like by all these methods, the students' personal knowledge and personal skills, they are increasing, that how to tell the story, how to express it and all. But in one way that is educating students in a particular subject in their own fields. But how this is exactly, I mean, this method is effective for end users like consumers or the farmers or first-hand holders, like, because these students generally, what I observe, that these are helpful for their research in their own fields rather than directly affecting the final consumers. That's my point. How do you do this? How you think that this is more effective way of transmitting the knowledge to the end user?
Oh, great question. Thank you for asking that. So what I didn't tell you is, thank you for asking that one a lot, a very important mode of engaging students in this USAID project is through challenges and competitions. So for example, at the conference that we were all at, they had what they call an innovation marketplace, where students, you've seen this model before, students take on challenges and they invent solutions, hopefully informed solutions, for things like solar ovens and water pumps and new technologies or new approaches for things. And it's very in its early stages. I wouldn't say there are any great effective solutions there. But the USAID itself, their science and technology arm, has just launched a series of challenges. You may have seen one that's out right now called Water for Food, I think it's called. And one of the things they want to do is engage students in coming up with those solutions. A big outcome that USAID hopes to get from this particular project is the engagement of students and others directly with farmers, directly with, in the food chain, processors, right, directly with companies and policymakers through these challenges and innovation marketplaces. It's not, I wouldn't say it's effective yet, but it's a form of engagement that goes along with this storytelling. So it's not just storytelling, it's deeper than that. And it is around real engagement. How it will pan out and what kinds of results we can point to, it's too early to tell. I think by the end of next year we'll be able to understand if that's really an important mechanism. But I think, you might not agree with me, but in our context, students, and in what we saw in the AgShare projects in the Rue Forum universities, is when students took on the role of storytelling, when they were working in the field, they became empowered in a way that they wouldn't have just doing their own thesis work, right? Their work was shown in a bigger way, so it's more authentic publication and sharing. Their work had another dimension to it, where they were engaged more like an extension person than just a student researcher, and they were formally assessed on that and part of the story that went along with it. So it changed their role in such a way that empowered students to be take on a different role. They weren't just students. And I think there's lots of power in that. It's also financially sustainable. Not that students are just free labor by any means, but it wasn't another group that had to go in at additional cost and do it. It was just tweaking the expectations of students a little bit that had good learning outcomes, good research outcomes, and good knowledge asset outcomes at the same time. So I think there's more work to be done with this sort of model, and we would welcome, collaboration with others around, well, what are those competencies and what are the systems of creation, knowledge creation and knowledge sharing that really leverage this unique student role that we have in our institutions. Students are innovators. They're not just buyers of, or consumers of our classes. They're creating things with us, and my belief is, and I've seen this happen on an individual basis, I'd love to see it happen even more. If we can engage them in a way that really gives them this role on purpose and by design and gives them recognition for it, I think we can see even more innovation coming out of our universities. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. Thanks for a nice detailed information.
Any other questions, or should we move on to MOOCs?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I just would like to ask what sort of yardstick or manner of doing impact assessment of these initial activities. Have you thought about it initially? Because at the end of the day, we normally would look into impact. I know that you've been saying about storytelling, anecdotes. These are all valid points for assessing impact, but maybe have you thought about what sort of parameters or indicators you would look into should you like to determine the impact of all these initiatives we are doing on distance education or these innovations of learning?
Thank you for your question. Every project that we do has its own monitoring and evaluation component, and we've been able to write up a lot of those. I believe the links that I've put on these slides, for example, the Food Safety Knowledge Network reported its impacts of its first pilots in a journal, so you can look at that article. The impacts of the first round of pilots for AgShare are published in the Journal of Asynchronous Learning. So, I mean, there's a lot, right? It's not like just 6 I could list for you, but if you look at those papers, you'll see. Nothing yet has been written about the impacts of translational scholars. They're written into the M&E plan for the USAID grant, but as I said, we're still in the very early stages there. But it's a great question, and that's where the payoff is, so it's something we pay very close attention to. I can share with you, I think one of the links on this slide for translational scholars is to, actually maybe I didn't put it on there. If you're interested in seeing the competencies the competency framework, which are the individual statements of skills, knowledge, and behavior that you can assess against for individual learning, those are available in a slideshow. And if you go to my SlideShare site, so if you go to slideshare.net/cgeith, my first initial and my last name, you'll see a translational scholar PowerPoint that I did in September that lists at the end some of the competencies we're starting to weed through and define more clearly for the translational scholars. So that's one thing that you can see that's very detailed and concrete that you can build off of. And then I'll just point you to those papers that have the other M&E impact indicators reported on. Thank you for your question. Any other questions before we talk about MOOCs? All right. Maybe you can move the camera so I can see the slides. Thank you. Okay, here. All right, trend number 4, massive open online, and I'd like to put a ... after this, because if you've been paying attention to, especially the press in the United States, we have all different forms of MOOCs. We have massive open online courses, we have massive open online research, we have massive open online, hold on just a minute. Massive open online events, so many different forms. And of course, as I speak to you now, if I had a camera, I'd show you this. The guy who's window washing is coming closer to my window, so I hopefully won't get too loud. We'll have to go out into the hallway to do this. anyway, there's so many different forms of massive open online, and there's a lot of hype around this. People are saying it's the end of education, it's the massive and scalable. But you know, you guys have been doing this in India, and other places have been doing this around the world. This is just massive open online. It's just open. It's open courses. It's like the Open University of the UK. It's what you're doing in your own countries. All it is online learning. It's not that good as on the current commercial platforms, but it has the potential to get much better.
In Mumbai, Madrid, and Leiden, Netherlands, these are a few of the 54,000 people registered for an online course in mythology.
Hello, mythologists.
Taught by a professor at a small studio at the University of Pennsylvania. Welcome to the wide world of MOOCs, massive open online courses. It's the chance for anyone, anywhere with an internet connection to learn for free from star professors at prestigious universities.
What we're here to do as academics is to find out new knowledge and to spread it abroad as widely as we possibly can.
Where did MOOCs come from? MOOCs started attracting widespread interest in 2011.
To excite you about the field.
After a top Google researcher and a Stanford computer science professor teamed up to offer a free online course on artificial intelligence. It attracted 160,000 students. Stanford's Sebastian Thune went on to found Udacity, one of a handful of companies that starting last year began offering large-scale MOOCs. Udacity claims more than 1.5 million enrollments from over 200 countries. edX, 1.3 million students. Coursera, 5 million. Do MOOC students have as much success as those in traditional classes? In terms of completing courses, not so much. A February survey found an average completion rate of just 7.5%. But those dropouts were likely the result of students really just sampling the courses, and they had little to lose by quitting. In terms of exam scores, education experts want to see more data before drawing conclusions. Most university professors say the best way to learn is still in a small classroom or in a classroom supplemented by online technology, but not everyone finds that option affordable or even available. Nearly 40% of people registered on Coursera, for example, come from developing countries. How can students participate in class? Most MOOCs offer no direct link between a student and professor. While there are online chat boards for class discussions, MOOCs lack the same social dimension that's offered in college. And you don't see too many MOOC keg parties. What's on the horizon? The world of higher ed is watching what happens at the Georgia Institute of Technology. Partnering with Udacity, the school is offering a master's degree in computer science that will cost students less than $7,000. And Coursera is teaming up with public universities to develop 4-credit courses that will have an enrollment fee. How disruptive will MOOCs be to colleges and universities?
In this course, you will learn about normal reproductive biology in dogs.
Right now, employers aren't respecting courses that students complete through MOOCs as the college classroom equivalent, but this is only year 2 of the MOOC movement. So stay tuned. That's the short answer.
Good, thank you. Can you hear me okay now? My audio okay? Very good, thank you. Sorry that I lost you, but I'm glad that was perfect timing with the video. There's a MOOC, a massive open online course about MOOCs. It's called MOOC. And they have this image, this is a quote from them: "Nothing will stop the incessant march." You know, the hype on MOOCs has not died down. It's been like going on a year and a half. And they're here to stay, they're a permanent feature. And I think there are lots of opportunities to use this methodology for development work and in the field of agriculture and the work of ICRISAT and other research centers. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples. We've been doing some pilots at MSU. We have not joined a platform like Coursera or Udacity or edX. We may in the future, but you know, the kinds of things we're doing, we do need picking a platform is not about the technology. Picking a platform is about marketing and distribution. So if you have your own technology, you can use WordPress, you can use a regular learning management system. The technology is pretty irrelevant. It's how you design the experience, and what's the intention of it. And this is, all you do is use very good instructional design principles for online learning courses. It's really the same thing, with one important exception. The important exception is that you have you can potentially have, like, the average Coursera course is 6,000 people. You know, in the little video you saw, 150,000. They're getting bigger than that, getting close to 500,000. But that's rare. The average is 6,000 on Coursera. So having an experience of any size, a 1-week webinar, a 2-week short course, a 12-week semester-long 3-credit course, is different for that scale because you have to do grading differently. You have to grade at scale. You have to provide feedback at scale. And that's where computer adaptive learning systems, game design, automated testing, that's where all those technology solutions start to become worth it, is when you're operating at that kind of scale. Now, the financial model for doing things at that scale is a totally different story that has not been figured out yet, but it's nothing different from what you've already been doing if you've been engaging in any sort of online learning or hybrid learning delivery. It's really the same thing. If you have 6,000 people, approximately 5% will actually participate the whole time as opposed to just lurk in the background. With those people that participate, a small number of them, maybe 1% of your total, will actually pay something, and this is in the US market, they will actually pay additional money, like $50, to get a certificate of completion. An even smaller percentage may engage in it for credit, and there's different scenarios for credit. If you're interested in that, I can tell you more. But this is mostly like an event. It's great for awareness, and it's great for gathering information. So let me give you some examples. So this is a typical massive open online course in the United States. Is traditional university content. It could be anything from, as I said in the video, artificial intelligence, all the way to, psychology 101, some basic courses. So we did a basic course with some funding from the Gates Foundation. We were participated in their first round of funding for these. We got $50,000 US to create a MOOC in basic science 101. Very well received. I think we had about 2,000 or 1,500 students in it, not huge. We used our own learning management system, Desire to Learn, to deliver it, and it was, it was very successful, a traditional online course. Another example is the food fraud MOOC. We have a world's expert in food fraud, food counterfeiting, and he's worked with companies. He's gotten corporate sponsorship to translate his MOOC materials into other languages. He's been offering, this is the second one he just did recently, for like Food Fraud 101. It's essentially, it's not a credit course, it's like a webinar, professional development for people in the food industry. He had 2,000 people in his first offering, and the highest retention rate of any, and participation rate of any MOOC we've heard of, about 80% of the people that participated stayed in. Why was that? Because the companies required their suppliers to show that they completed this and to show the certificate of completion that they got. So it was a very totally different dynamic than a traditional MOOC dynamic. But having 2,000 people and spreading awareness at this basic level is useful. But it was also useful because we delivered a survey to the participants in that. We got not a great participation or return rate on our survey, but I think that's because we waited till the third week to deliver it. We should have done it on the first day. But we had an IRB approved survey instrument that was created by this faculty member and another in the College of Business, and we gathered survey information about their experience with counterfeit food and food fraud, so that we could start building our research base in this area. This is a relatively new research area for us, and we needed field data. So this was a MOOC was a great way to create a survey population, and I see more people doing this. And this is you might consider this a good way to disseminate information and to gather information back. And we did that for another one that we did for the Global University, Metro Food, Metro Ag. This was the first MOOC we did. We did this over a year ago. And if you go to this link, you can see what the archives of that looked like. This was 6 weeks long. Every week there was a 1-hour webinar. We just used regular, Adobe Connect like we're using here. And then we used a WordPress website to share class resources and to organize the resources. And I think you can still see there was a WordPress forum, threaded discussion that we used for ongoing things. This had, I think, about 450 people in it. We're probably going to do this again. and shorten it up a little bit. We learned a lot. One of the things we collected from here, this was our first experiment, was case studies. We asked people as an assignment to describe a metropolitan agriculture initiative or project that they were currently working on. And we worked with the researcher in the College of Business to make sure that certain dimensions of this project were described that aligned with his research variables. I think he was interested in conflict and multiple stakeholder, multi-stakeholder conflict resolution, multi-stakeholder engagement, what works and what doesn't. I wouldn't say we were highly successful at all at gathering that information, but it was our first attempt, and we learned a lot about how we would craft that the next time that we offer something in this subject area. So we're seeing MOOCs as a way to raise awareness, create a mailing list of interested people, and gather information at the same time. So we're going to take those things that we learned from Metro Ag and from food fraud, and we're going to be doing a MOOC in probably the February-March timeframe, and this is just the flyer for it, Building Capacity for Gender in Agriculture. My group produced for the World Bank 20 modules, e-learning, standalone professional development modules based on the Gender and Ag source book that the World Bank has created. And what we want to do is use that as a base knowledge, like a textbook, for a series of short courses for people in development that are creating projects or funding projects that want to make sure that gender assessment and gender points of view are built into the design of the project. So that's the audience, and you can see the things that we'll be covering. What we really want to try to do is populate a database of and use the MOOC as a way to invite people to share their data. So we want to aggregate from around the world more gender and ag resources and sources for people. So we want to work with existing repositories and existing project information. We want to bring it all together, and we want to visually map it as part of this MOOC experience. So we're calling it an online short course. It will be a massive open online short course. So I don't know, what would you call that? A moosh or something, a short course. So this is our latest project. This will be done under the umbrella of the Global Center for Food Systems Innovation. And if you're interested in collaborating with us on this, we would really welcome your participation. So that's our latest initiative for MOOCs. So let me wrap up, and then we do have some time for questions, I think. So the trends in open that we shared: open knowledge, which is the place to start; open curriculum, which structures it a little bit more where it's needed; translational scholars, which is a promising new role for students that we think shows lots of potential but has yet to be totally measured; and then massive open online courses, which is just online learning on steroids, which is, I think it's an opportunity for research as much as it is for dissemination. And I don't like the C after it, which is why I left it off. Massive open online, whatever. I don't think a course is the best way to think about it. But anyway, I hope that you found this information useful. I hope that it's pointed you in some directions. The reason that I think this is important work in terms of bringing openness to these sorts of activities is that this quote from Paul Hawken, he says, "We heal a system by connecting more of it to itself." And I think by connecting people with information with people, and leveraging our networks, using open methodologies to just empower it and make it even bigger and make those connections grow faster, is really the key to spreading and creating knowledge in areas like agriculture. And I will just leave you with my closing saying, because all this stuff is not all proven and operationalized yet. This is a new area that you're embarking on, relatively new. I applaud you for going forward with it. And my final words are: proceed until apprehended. Thank you. Yes, thank you very much.
Did you hear the clapping sound from here? We have appreciated for taking your time out and sharing your experiences, and also throwing some light on the global trends, what we are following, especially in open educational resources. most importantly, thanks so much for sharing all the work what MSU is doing in this specific area. I'm sure some of the participants
Yes,
may
I'd be
have
happy.
some questions.
I'd be happy to. Thank
I'd
you.
like to take some questions before you sign off.
Good evening.
Good evening, Christine. Yeah, this is Vasanta. I'm working
Hello.
as an associate professor in Agriculture University. To make the students understand the theory very well, generally what we do is we take them to the training programs and we make them train the farmers. In addition to that, to make a concept very clear, we cite so many examples and case studies, so that the learning will be very effective with the students. And here I have a question that all these are open access courses. Maybe the case studies and examples which you are quoting are maybe from other countries. I don't know how the students will understand those examples and case studies. Generally, we take up the local problems, local challenges, and we tell them the solutions. In that way, they understand the concept clearly. If you give certain examples or case study which were recorded elsewhere in Africa or some other countries, can the students understand the concept well?
Good question. I think I understand your question. The pedagogy that you're using is absolutely the most effective. We use the same thing, you know, at Michigan State, and Roof Forum uses the same thing. What the challenge that the AgShare schools had and still have, this is Roof Forum, is that many of those schools are not resourced and don't necessarily use this sort of case-based approach. They do lecture on theory and readings, and one of their things they wanted to strengthen was exactly what you do, having the students, you know, understand a problem right in their own context. So by creating materials that have the local story and the local example, that's what they really needed. That was a part of their missing link. I think what you do in terms of getting the students right out in the field to train the farmers, there is nothing stronger than having, as you know, having students actually do the work, and you don't learn it even, you learn it even better when you have to teach it to someone else, and engaging the students in that way. So the AgShare method and the translational scholar method, just to a less extent right now, is having students out in the field doing work, improving practices with farmers in either a teaching or quasi-extension-like role. And while they're doing it, sharing the story in some sort of a knowledge artifact that can be shared back to help bridge that divide for those who can't actually get out there in the field, and to create a knowledge asset that faculty and others can use potentially to help tell those local stories better and illustrate those local examples. So I hope that answered your question. I think the way that you're approaching it is exactly, you know, the most powerful way possible. Any other questions?
Any other questions? Srinivas.
Hello?
Hello. Hi, Christine. So I have like two questions for you. Sorry. So my first question is like, how can you compare these, you know, your AgShare toolkit or food safety knowledge platform and like MOOCs with like the traditional, you know, on-campus learning systems? And my second question is like, since like everything is a Creative Commons license, if someone wants to like basically take this up and proceed further for their own use.
Okay, I think I understand your first question, then your second. Is your first question, let me make sure I'm clear on the first question. Do you want to know if what we're doing for the examples that I showed you, including the MOOCs, is different than how the systems that we use on campus, like the technology systems? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, basically like what you use Michigan State University on campus. Like how can you compare?
Okay, so
the
technology tool-wise, we use the same tools. We use WordPress for campus websites. We use Desire to Learn. D2L is our learning management system for the campus. The first MOOC that I showed you, Stephen Thomas's Science MOOC, was delivered using a version, not exactly the same version, but a version of the D2L learning management system. And we used WordPress tools to deliver the Metropolitan Agriculture MOOC. I think we used Canvas.net, which is free right now. It's a learning management system that they're trying to get into the MOOC business with. Anybody can go to Canvas.net and launch a MOOC on their platform. We used them for the food fraud MOOCs, and it's been part of our experiments. So the tool set is basically the same. The difference is this. We don't want, using for MOOCs, if we had 6,000 people, which we haven't had yet, but let's assume we had 6,000 people. We don't want to risk overburdening the on-campus system and potentially putting it at risk of not performing as well as it should because we're supporting this MOOC. So we've created a separate instance of D2L, we're using the cloud so that we're not burdening the campus system because we can't have credit-paying campus students in a system that's being put at risk for doing something different. So that's really the only difference. Pedagogy-wise, technology tool-wise, using Adobe Connect for webinars, for example, it's all the same infrastructure. I think we're fortunate in that we have that ability to do it. If we didn't, there are plenty of cloud-based services that you can use to accomplish every single feature, with the exception of some of the fancy things like gaming or adaptive learning. But their basic tool set is totally available, in many cases for free, from cloud providers. And your second question, I think, what was your second question? Tell me again.
My second question is like.
Yes.
If
yes, please.
Taking up this, for example, let's say Akshay Toolkit.
Thank you for asking. Yes, please use it. It's Creative Commons.
Creative Commons license, right?
Creative Commons license means you don't have to ask our permission first for the uses that we've licensed approval for. So if you look at the Creative Commons license, there should be a link that takes you to the exact wording of the license. In most of our projects, we use just a very simple requirement. You can do anything you want with it as long as you attribute us correctly. And we ask that the attribution be Michigan State University and that you put a website in there, for the source project. But otherwise, you are welcome to remix it, redistribute it, translate it, do anything you want with it, but just credit back that the source material came from Michigan State. So I hope you do great things with it. You're welcome.
Thank you, Chris.
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you so much for taking those questions and providing solutions. Yeah, if you can take one more question, I have a question. I know we've been discussing on all these things, and also it connects to the next session, what we will be doing on innovative technology approaches and innovative learning resources. So let me introduce you a couple of people here, and also how the ICRISAT has been engaged in these areas from last 40 years, I think so. Maybe you can see the generations. So I'm showing you Dr. Diwakar here. Even I didn't born the time. So he started these training programs here, and that's the time we didn't talk about the online courses, not even computer-mediated learning. Everything is a tool.
Very, very nice to meet you. Thank you.
Who introduced the toolkit? You know that one. And after that, the Desire to Learn and everything, the learning management systems. Okay. In between that.
You know exactly what I'm talking about. The place that MOOCs copied. Nice to meet you.
Open University. So he. Okay, and he's the one did a lot of work in open distance learning approaches. We didn't talk about this electronic learning. How we can make these paper-based systems available for the distance students and the distance learners. And now you can see Rojana Mola, she is our coordinator for Learning Systems Unit. And now who is trying with all these electronic learning, with the learning management systems. As well I can show Veeranjanelu, guy with Indian Council of Agricultural Research, who is working on these e-government and open online courses. First, if you can see during this evolution phase, we've been experienced various kinds of platforms and various kinds of technologies and the tools also. Essentially, even I mentioned in that forum, like there are two approaches we are seeing. One is the content creation that may be from the online resources, or that may be from the other resources, how the instructor can collect all these materials, create a course curriculum. In your four trends, open knowledge, how we are transforming the open knowledge into the open course curriculum, then how we are translating these learners into the scholars by enhancing their capacities in a specific area. But the question is, if you can look at these open educational resources when we are talking about the reusable learning objects, at the same time we usually discuss about the e-learning technology standards also. Shareable content object reference model, our ARID and our instructional management systems and everything. For any learning material, if I need to say the SCORM compliant that need to follow the four basic principles, reusability, durability, accessibility, adaptability. How can I say a course can be a massive open online course? When you say gender in agriculture, a short online course or a short massive open online course, is there any standards who validate that one? It's the same thing like Creative Commons, we need to follow certain standards. Is there any mechanism to follow to say or to certify a course is a massive open online course? That's the first question. Related to the same thing, you briefly mentioned about the Audacity and the Coursera. So those are very popular nowadays. At the same time, you are using Desire to Learn at Michigan State University. We have our platforms like Agate Open Courseware, MIT, they have an open courseware, MIT Open Courseware, and Gateway to the Education.
What makes it massive is, I think, your question, right? Well, first of all, it's wonderful to, thank you for taking the camera around the room and introducing me. I wish I was there to shake all of your hands because, it's amazing how things have changed just in the last 20 years and what's now available to us to use. And, openness is one really important dimension, but there are other things going on in our world that make teaching and learning so much more flexible than it ever has been. I would encourage you, with all your vast experience from paper-based to open university work and so on, we have more opportunities than ever to break down the box that we call a course and organize it in different ways, organize the learning experience in different ways. I have a new campaign at MSU. My latest project is using all this knowledge in support of experiential learning as opposed to packaging up the course. I think we're quickly reaching the point where the course as a package is too limiting in many ways, and there are now so many tools available for us to break the limits of what we call a course experience. There's still a need for assessment and quality and all those things, but now there are things we can do that just weren't possible or they were too high cost to do in the past. So I'm excited about that. What makes a course massive, in my definition, is just the ability to have an unlimited number of people sign up for it. Okay, that's really all it is. And designing the experience to leverage all of the juiciness of all those people that are in there. So all those participants, even if they're not deeply participating like somebody who is going to be assessed for a grade, they're still there. Many of the people that participate are passionate about the topic and they want to share their information. So here you have, essentially for free, resources that are joining, in effect, the back of the classroom that you can call on, especially if you use constructivist pedagogy. You can call on all these experts to share their information, share their resources. That's an asset you don't typically have in a regular course with a smaller volume of people. So that's what makes it massive, is the amount of participation, but especially how you leverage it. So we've been leveraging it to gather information but you can also leverage it to crowdsource essentially resources and in-depth discussion. And it's an asset in the class that you may not have been able to take advantage of before. As far as I know, there's not a standard. When the people that I know that are doing massive open online courses are using the same sorts of models, like in the U.S., what's it called? Maryland started it. There's an assessment framework for online courses. I just can't think of the name of it off the top of my head. But it applies, you can make it apply with some adjustments to massive open online courses as well. I haven't seen anything yet that says this is the standard, this is what makes it open, these are the pedagogies. There's certainly some work you could do there and contribute, to the literature base of this growing format that is not going away. But it all starts with very good distance education, distance learning, and asynchronous learning practices and pedagogies. It's the same thing.
I have a comment for your information, as well as a request to the participants workshop. First, in India, this system of online learning is far behind, very, very far behind. Though at ICRISAT we started this in 1980s, but somehow it has not picked up. I see that there is a very good trend in India, not at the university level, but at the farmers level. There are a number of private companies who are interested in marketing their agriculture. They are more open for informing the farmers online so that they can get some money. But the problem is how open the policy makers for this open learning is a big question. So perhaps we may go with your model and then bring it at the university level.
Oh, thank you very much for your comments, and thank you for all the work that you've been doing. I just share with you that a recent Sloan Consortium conference. Sloan Consortium is one of the biggest online learning professional associations, mostly for faculty in the United States. And one of the speakers there, he had a slide up that says, 19 years, which is the association's 19 years old. 19 years is a long time not to be recognized, And you may be feeling the same way. It's like, we've been doing this work for 19 years. Finally, it's reached the mainstream. Finally, it's getting recognized. But unfortunately, it's the for-profit groups that came in the U.S. anyway and capitalized on all the work we've done for the last 25 years. It looks like they did it all, but all their approaches, their technologies, their tools, all rest on the work that's been done the last 20 years. And unfortunately, in the U.S., they're not that good at it yet, They're not as good as what we know it could be. And we could strive to have so much higher quality than, we're actually seeing in some of these things. But we just have to keep slogging along and doing the good work and working with policymakers to request that things be open. And I think that's a particular challenge on mobile phone, Dilip, which is one of your areas. I think that's a really important way to not just deliver, but it's an important tool, and having things open in that context is a little bit trickier. But we shouldn't give up. We have to keep that focus on quality, and we have to keep the focus on making things as transparent and reusable and accessible as possible. But it's complicated, but that's why it's fun. That's why I'm here in Singapore at the Global Food Safety Partnership meeting, trying to get these values and principles embedded in the working documents and the core assumptions of this private-public partnership as it moves forward. So thank you. Thanks for having me today. Appreciate it. And thanks for all of your questions and participation.
Thank you so much, Chris. Please accept our sincere appreciation and gratitude for taking your time out to join this morning with us. And just for your information, here not only the colleagues from ICRISAT, we do also participants from various other institutes in India as well as from Africa and Philippines. And anybody else, Anna? Yeah, that's it. So hopefully you will start receiving emails and the new collaborations. And even here at ICRISAT, we look forward to welcoming you here whenever your time permits to further strengthen this relationship, contribute for a
Yes, thank you, Dilip.
We wanted to
Thank you. I
honor
look forward to working with you all in the future. Thank you very much. Bye-bye for now.
When you come next time.
Thank you.
Again, Chris. Bye. This is the lunch time for you. Okay, thank you. Time environment. The content modeling, even if you could look at from the traditional approaches to the modern electronic learning, how we have been creating this content, the instructors or the subject matters, course creators, how they are gathering the resources from various places and articulating that one with a specific outline, that's a course organization. And then they are bringing this one, the course material. And what kind of mechanisms we are using to make this course material to reach out to the end user. Whoever that may be the stakeholders, Srinivas, that may be the farmers, or that may be the extension agents, that may be the students, or that may be the faculty members. It's a mechanism, it's a kind of process, what we are understanding. But we need to adapt that one to various stakeholders in whatever the format we wanted to do that. And the most important thing is sometimes these course materials are very static because the creation of electronic learning content is expensive and time-consuming process. We need to see how we can bring the flexibilities and make it more open and allow people to use this one, reuse this one number of times to enhance the entire process and minimize the cost and the time to make this process happen. That's the idea, and we are still in the learning process. If you have heard from Chris, there is no mechanism yet to state or to standardize. It's a massive open online. We are all learning. So, but I'm happy now we discussed this one. It's a modern approach. At the same time, let's also see what we are doing at ICRISAT and how we are dealing with these things. Now, next session, Anna is going to introduce some of these practices, and at the same time, we would also provide an opportunity to share your experience. Okay, thank you so much. It's a tea time. And Anna is our Learning Systems Unit Coordinator. She's been working on these the course materials and developing these things with the help of students and scholars. Let's hear from her, and Dr. Diwakar facilitate the session. Thank you. Have a good learning experience.